We have hashtags. Say hashtags. We have hashtags that we want you to use to post concerning this event. Our first hashtag is governance. That's our first hashtag. Our second hashtag is Isuzu Sustainability Seminar. Oh, wow, I like that one. I'll use that one. And the third one is bridging the governance gap. So those are the hashtags we'll be using today on all our social platforms. So feel free to use them also. So we'll be using governance, we'll be using Isuzu Sustainability Seminar, and we'll be using bridging the governance gap. So that's hashtag governance, hashtag Isuzu Sustainability Seminar, and hashtag bridging the governance gap. If we are able to have them on the screen on and off in the course of the event, that would be amazing. Production team would appreciate that. So as I start this conversation off, I'm a proud alumni of this Strathmore University. I did my master's here. And one of the units that we took spoke to the question of what corporates do in light of the community. So it was an ethics class. It was taught by a very interesting Italian man. And we had a conversation around the role of companies the role of companies in how they interface with society. And our classes get very hot debates. First, I invite all of you to take up any of our programs, and you will see that. We get very heated in our debates because these are industry professionals and experts like you who are seated here, and they were engaging on the matter. And it was the first time that I had to contend with the reality of what people call capitalism and the effect it has on the community and the environment at large. So we had a 3-week protracted debate around it, and we had case studies that we were studying about it. And I came to a personal conclusion that I think informs the way I have come into this meeting, is that at the heart of every endeavor is the welfare of people. At the heart of every endeavor is the welfare of people. Success is our ability to be able to contribute to the welfare of people. Now, that was a hard place to come to, if you come from the finance background that I did, and the way we knew, profit and loss and balance sheet. But the more I interacted with this class, the more I appreciated that over and above the profitability question, there is a people question. And the people question is the one that is undergirding the sustainability conversation. And so as we are here, I'm excited that we have industry professionals who are experts on the matter of sustainability. Excited that Isuzu is taking lead in this conversation. Let's appreciate them. And excited that we have people who have modeled it. Glad to see you here, Bwana Eliud. And we are able to hear from all of us and consolidate our conversation and the quality of decisions that shapes events like this one. So as we start, I really do encourage you, discern the opportunity that is presented to us. That beyond a half-day event that we have here, we have the opportunity to shape and contribute to the sustainability conversation. We have the ability to engage in networks and partnership that could bring very many children out of this space. And I mean ideas that would be able to further our sustainability campaign, both as Strathmore and as Isuzu. So once again, feel welcome. Karibuni sana. With that said, if you would allow me, I would like to welcome Dr. Caesar Mwangi, our Executive Dean, to open this event for us and welcome people to Strathmore. So Dr. Caesar, karibu sana. Let's appreciate him as he comes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Njoroge, our MC. We normally start with protocols, and I just want to recognize Eliud Kipchoge first and foremost. His first visit here to Strathmore, and we are very, very honored. Welcome, Eliud Kipchoge. I also want to recognize the presence of Rita Kavashe, the Chief Executive and Chairman of Isuzu East Africa, one of the greatest businesses in this country, and she's a great leader who we appreciate so much. So I also welcome you. I recognize so many wonderful people. Dr. Mungai is here and others. Allow me not to mention you by name, please. Is that okay? And you shall forgive me. But you're all very, very important to us. And I want to welcome all of you to Strathmore Business School for this seminar. Isuzu East Africa Sustainability Seminar 2024, I think the third in a series of seminars. And we really laud this company for taking this initiative and saying they're going to have a series of seminars. And we are so delighted that we're able to partner with them. Our MC has set the tone, and I'm very delighted, Njoroge, that you've captured it very well. You mentioned the welfare of people. Whatever we do, we've got to talk about the welfare of people and think about the people, because we've got to sustain life for people. I think that is the most important thing. And that life has to be a life of dignity for those people. And it, as I was sitting there, I recalled my own awakening in this issue of sustainability. Many years ago, I was a student of economics at the University of Nairobi, which some of you may have attended. And in that university, we had a specialization called Bachelor of Arts in Economics. And it was such a highly sought specialization that they only took a maximum of 15 students out of the 300 economics students who learned there at the time. But one of the things that I was a bit frustrated about was economics focused so much on production and scale and producing more, but rarely did classical economics talk about people. And this disturbed me a little bit, because when you start talking about people, there was a branch of economics called welfare economics, which was never talked about very much. It was somehow put aside because it was not talking about money and wealth. But there was a gentleman, there's a book I read back then, and it was called Small is Beautiful, a study of economics as if people matter. I don't know if anyone has ever read that book, by a gentleman called E.F. Schumacher. Okay? And this book was actually the first, it was written in the 70s. It was actually the first book I read that talked about sustainable living for human beings through wealth creation. And it captured my mind at that time. And I'm so happy when this issue of sustainability and people and planet and ESG keeps coming up now. In the 70s, this guy was talking about it and people ignored him. In fact, they said, you're a heretic economist talking about people matter. But I think that's what it's all about. And if we don't focus on that, then we have lost the plot. So I'm very delighted that we have this seminar today talking about governance, the third leg of ESG, which is so critical because good governance impacts people positively, and bad governance impacts people negatively. And we really have to find a way of focusing on governance, and good governance for that matter, so that our people, all these millions of people in this country, these billions of people in this continent, 1.4 billion people in the African continent, can have a better life. Huh? That's it. And I'm so happy that Eliud and Rita, Isuzu East Africa, have this sustainability collaboration, and we're going to hear more about it. So with those few words, I really, really want to thank all of you. I want to wish you an excellent seminar today, and we look forward to more collaboration. And let us all be proponents of governance and sustainable governance, for that matter, for the benefit of all the people in the present and future generations. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caesar Mwangi, Executive Dean at Strathmore Business School. Governance will either impact people positively or negatively. All right. So we've started well. To help us continue in this particular conversation, we have Dr. Michael Musyoka, the Isuzu East Africa Manager for Sustainability, Monitoring, and Evaluation. But before he comes up, I want us to try something, right? So there are two ways we can appreciate people, right? One, we can clap for them, but there's also the way Parliament does it. How do they do it? Okay. So I call that a rumble, and that is what we'll use to welcome Dr. Michael Musyoka. So when I say rumble, what will you do? This is a fantastic crowd. So kindly help me welcome with a rumble Dr. Michael Musyoka, Isuzu East Africa Manager for Sustainability, Monitoring, and Evaluation. Karibu.
Good morning. Right. To the Strathmore business community and fraternity, Isuzu East Africa leadership team, our partners, customers, and business associates, private and public representatives in the house, and also joining online, our esteemed guests in the house and online. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome each and every one of you as we convene here today in celebration of Isuzu East Africa's third annual sustainability seminar. Since 2022, Isuzu East Africa holds annual sustainability seminar to champion sustainable best practice across the country. This year, Isuzu East Africa has partnered with Strathmore Business School in a recognized institution which has expertise in today's topical theme to elevate and enrich the seminar's key outputs to the wider society. Today's sustainability seminar draws us into evaluating a key theme of bridging the governance gap, best practices for the private and public sectors, which we hope to uphold in our organizations to ensure sustainability. Sustainability has become an important focus due to heightened expectations of the three pillars of ESG and the practices which essentially complement each other for sustainability to work at its best. Governance will encompass, but not limited to, aspects of accountability, transparency, culture, inclusivity, core values, quality of leadership, and decision-making processes. This seminar aligns organizations well to sustainable business operations, which will help them to foster growth. Through the leadership of Rita Kafashe, Isuzu East Africa has over the years upheld governance excellence, driving sustainable growth in our organization. We urge organizations to employ sustainable governance measures to help them in achieving success through leveraging its best practices. This seminar in particular will serve as a bridge between the private and the public sector, together with the communities around us. Us here meaning the business organizations. All the people present here possess varied experiences and expertise, and these different perspectives will enable each one of us to have a better comprehension and solution on how to bridge the governance gap. I welcome your active participation during the seminar to enable us to gain invaluable insights through sharing of ideas and help us amplify on the sustainability agenda. We also thank our panelists for creating time to attend our seminar and shed light on critical governance agenda. We are eager to learn the most from your expertise from your different sectors. Let us all exhaust the discussions from this seminar and gather important insights which will in turn help us in bridging the governance gap and advance sustainability agenda. Thank you so much. Let's get the best out of it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Musyoka, Isuzu East Africa Manager, Sustainability, Monitoring and Evaluation. You can tell a lot about a man in the way that he prepares for an event. I've had the privilege of seeing his heart pour into the preparation of this event. And this is a man who had a laser focus, right? Should have seen him here yesterday, just whipping all of us into shape to ensure that this was a top tier event. So I don't know, it was my first interaction with him. It was my first interaction with him, but his passion on the subject matter was over evident. And I'm really glad I got to meet a man who is as passionate about his job. There was no lackluster in the way he handled himself. That said, we've had bridging governance gaps. We've had sustainability. And these are very wide terms that need us to set a sense of context to be able to move ahead with a very specific direction in the conversation. So to give us the background and the context, and by the way, congratulations on number 3. That you keep going is something worth celebrating. Let's rumble for them on number 3. So to set the background and to set the context for us so that we're able to at least appreciate the specific scope of this conversation, I have the distinct privilege to invite Dr. Edward Mungai, who is a sustainability expert and he's a sustainability expert and evangelist. So I think you'll help us differentiate what makes one an expert and then an evangelist. So expert is subject matter knowledge. Evangelist is the fact that you are one of its most vocal proponents. So kindly help me rumble as we welcome Dr. Edward Mungai.
Thank you, Joroge. And clearly, you are struggling to say that one, evangelist. I didn't understand why. Now, recently, I happened to go to Nigeria, and they taught me one small thing. They said whenever I stand, when others have stood ahead of me, I just say, I'm standing on the existing protocol. So I think Dr. Musyoka did a fantastic job, to do that protocol. And I have, very simple task here. It's about laying the context. And I like doing that by telling stories. As you can see, I don't have notes. And I do hope that I can be as eloquent as Dr. Musyoka. A few minutes ago, I was standing out there. And one old friend of mine called David Mwindi, who is head of compliance at Standard Chartered Bank, came and we started discussing. And he told me that, look, we were here 20 years ago. Of course, I'm still part of Strathmore, but we'd studied for the first time in Strathmore probably more than 20 years ago. And the Strathmore that we knew then was a very small piece. And we argued this is because of very deliberate strategies, very good governance, and thirdly, people spending money where that money is supposed to be spent. And that's why Strathmore University is here. But the story is not about Strathmore University. In January of 2021, at the height of COVID, Lita called me and said, well, Dr. Mungai, we would like your help. And the help was to try and see how we can bring in sustainability within the business. I have a lot of joy today when they are talking about number 3, but they missed one detail. And that detail is to tell you number 1 was about environmental issues. Number 2 was about social issues. And number 3 is about governance. We complete the word ESG. Now, it's very unfortunate that many of us use the word sustainability and ESG interchangeably. This morning, I'm going to give you the distinction. What is sustainability? Sustainability is that development that meets the needs of the present, without compromising those of the future. So in simple terms, that is actually the end. The end is how can we sustain our livelihoods? How can we sustain our world? How can we sustain our institutions? But to be able to do that, you definitely need a means. Yes, it's the end, but what is the means? And the means is clearly the E, the S, and the G. Now, today we are talking about that G, and it's very bold for a private sector company to come and say, we want to be open and speak about governance. And I'll come back to that point. But I think it's also important that we, as we go through this process of becoming sustainable, we'll obviously have many challenges. Yes, there are myths, but also there are benefits. And I must tell you, traditionally, we used to have something called CSR. And interchangeably, again, ESG, CSR, sustainability is said to be the same thing. Now, let me define CSR. I know you know it as corporate social responsibility. Starting today, it means cosmetic social responsibility. Why is it cosmetic? Because truly, it must be connected to the business. Let me put it differently, and probably I want to put it very clearly here, that sustainability is not philanthropy. Yes, I have no issue with corporate philanthropy, but we can talk about corporate philanthropy for the whole day. I'm not too sure what's going on with the technology. We can talk about corporate philanthropy for a whole day, but today we've been asked to come and talk about sustainability. And sustainability is about doing good as good business. Meaning along the way, we must make tons and tons of money. Along the way, we must be able to transform the way people, are. We must be able to transform our working environment. We must be able to transform our institutions. But as we try to achieve that, friends, we must also have interest because, as I said, it must have a business case. Otherwise, then you'll have a lot of problems with your finance people. And there are 5 ways, again, that we can be able to make those tons and tons of money through sustainability. Number 1, we can definitely be able to increase our revenues, either through new products or existing products that will make more attractive to our people. And by the way, in this same institution, we've done research, 74% of East Africans want to buy from sustainable companies. So whatever you do with that information is up to you. But please note, our wallet will be shared 74% to those who are responsible. And therefore, it becomes, a paradigm for us to be able to increase our revenues. It also helps us to cut costs. I mean, I've worked within Isuzu. I've seen how they've done water harvesting. I've seen what they've done with solar. I mean, a fantastic example is this university. 70% of the power is coming from solar, which translates to 70% savings. So for sure, if you are saving 70% of your cost, of your energy cost, that's a benefit. And that becomes benefit number 2. Number 1 is revenues. Number 2 is cost. Number 3 is about risk management. I tell you, corporates, public sector, we are under siege. Too much busybodies running around trying to find errors within our organizations and mistakes within our organization. But if we put proper systems and we become resilient, then for sure that will be the thing of the past. And it will help us to manage our risks. Number 4 is access to capital. Yes, if you are responsible, if you are sustainable, including environment, social, and governance issues, you will attract single-digit amount of money. Today, we are ending at 16%. I tell you, there is money which is chasing those responsible organizations. So again, it makes business sense for us to have, sustainability as part of our core business. And finally, is that social license to operate. Rita and team, hopefully they'll be able to share the things they've done. And I've seen, the transformation. May it be about Mukuru, may it be about their neighbors, may it be about the dealers, may it be about the waste that they are dealing with, may it be about the internal processes, all aimed at becoming sustainable. And with that, obviously we will, and it was said here, it's a reputable, it's a responsible company because that creates a brand. It also makes them to have that social license to operate. But as I said, it's not easy. Why is it not easy? Because he was talking that I'm an evangelist. And I can tell you, I've been an evangelist since 2015, preaching the gospel. And guess what? One of the first person to call me and say, well, we can make sense out of these things that you talk about was Rita. And out of that, the whole world opened. Everybody now is talking about ESG. Isuzu have been at this journey for the last 4 years. But what am I trying to say? We do have myths. Some people think that this thing is for the old, rich, large Muzungu companies. That's what people think sustainability is about. Now ask yourself, is Isuzu really a Mzungu company? Is it so rich that they are doing this? But because it's business, it's business value creation, then it makes sense for them. So let's get out of our mind that this is only for the big, old, rich, and Muzungu companies. The second point, the myth is that it costs money. Yes, of course. $2.5 million to put up the solar system here is not a joke. But guess what? 6 years down the line is paid off 100%. And we are still on 70%. Yes, it will only be costly if we look at it from a short-term perspective. There is also a question that if we are doing CSR and ad hoc activities, then we are sustainable. Well, it must be entrenched within the business model. Finally, if the CEO is not talking about it, a couple of people are talking about it, then we are sustainable. It must be from the top. It must from the board, the senior management, and everybody must speak about sustainability within the organization. And that's how we make the difference. Now, friends, let's talk about this governance. And this is the elephant in the room. Traditionally, we have said, to do sustainability, we knew about E. In fact, every time we talk about sustainability, people will switch and they start talking about environment. Over the last 3 years, we have seen more people now talking about the social, human rights, talking about employee welfare, talking about different elements about social, the S. But the elephant in the room is G. And because we are all shy from it, maybe because of the misdoing that we've done in the past, this is about the transparency, it's about accountability. It's about how we can become a resilient business. It's about ethics. It's about anti-corruption. These are things people don't want to speak. And that's why it still remains the elephant in the room. But as committed here, we can actually be able to make a difference, and we can be able to see that as a result of addressing our G, those 5 benefits will be able to accrue to us, not to mention that we'll be transforming people. I think, Dr. Caesar summarized it very well. Good governance, good welfare of the people. And I think that is what we should aim for. Now, today, we have private sector, we have academia represented here, we have civil society, we have the public sector, and we also have we the people. The call to action is very simple. It can be done, it's beneficial, and you'll be able to hear, testimonies of how these have made a difference within organizations, within individuals. And as I was sitting with Eliud this morning, it reminded me that no human is limited. Truly together, if we are able to do that, we can make ourselves sustainable. It doesn't matter, it starts with simple steps. 2021, when Isuzu started the journey, but they were very deliberate exactly where they want to go and what is it they want to achieve. So my encouragement is the things that we'll be able to get from today, friends. Let's be able to incorporate them into our organizations, into our lives, and it will be able to make a difference. Finally, as we go to that theme of no human is limited, and we can do it. This morning, and I must say this story, I surprised Eliud because I have beaten Eliud in one thing, and he honored me. And I said, Eliud, and I'll show you in a short while, Eliud is chasing this element here, and he can be able to tell you about it. This is called 6-star marathon, where you run Tokyo, you run Paris, you run New York, you run Chicago, Boston, and one more, and London. He still have to do New York. But what am I trying to say with this story? I started when I was 105 kilos, and I wanted to become sustainable. You can also become sustainable in different ways, and that is the way of life. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
You know a man is courageous when he has the ability to say, I've beaten Eliud. The moment he started that statement, I was waiting to see where it is going. Because, I mean, Eliud Kipchoge, as Strathmore, we honor you for the feats that your life has represented. You will be surprised at how far-reaching your accomplishments are, even in the way we teach. Yeah, I like that. Let's rumble. Yeah, yeah. Just this year, I sat in a class, and when you were breaking the record, it was used to teach some of the government officials. We were with our associate dean, and so you've done well. We are proud of you as a nation, but also as an institution, and that you have beaten Eliud in one thing. Dr. Edward Mungai, we will also rumble for you. Come on, let's rumble for him. I cannot envision you at 105. I cannot. So that's really, really impressive. So thank you very much. All right, at this time, we are moving well. I would like to introduce a very seasoned journalist. I think you all know him. He was very present in he has been very present in very significant conversations in this country. And it is my distinct honor to welcome Eric Latif to come to the podium, even as we begin to get into the panel session. Please help me rumble as we welcome Eric Latif.
I think I'll start by standing up here before I move. Oh, there's no seat for me. Oh, clearly. I'm supposed to be standing here throughout. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Conversation today is about the G, the missing G, all right? And we're going to have a conversation with my panelists, and I'm going to welcome them up on stage. And like we've been told by the MC, what we do is we rumble as they come up. First up on stage, Rita Kavashe, MBS. No, acknowledge these things. Rita is the chair of the board and managing director at Isuzu East Africa. She has worked in this company since 1995. My goodness. Now another rumble. She is also a non-executive director on the board of Bamburi Cement, chairperson on the board of BAT, both listed firms in the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Second up on stage is Dr. Fred Wasike. Rambo. Dr. Wasike is the Isuzu East Africa Director for Human Resource and Corporate Sustainability. He has worked over 20 years as a human resources professional and company secretary in both public and private sectors. Now, his profile says he is a member in good standing of the Institute of Directors, the Kenya Institute of Management, the Institute of Human Resource Management, and the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya, ICPSK. He has a PhD in Business Administration from the University of Nairobi. Rambo. Next up is Professor Nura Mohammed, PhD, EBS. Professor Mohammed is the Director General of the Kenya School of Government. He's the one who teaches government to be government. So he's the one who infuses the G in the government, not just of the Republic of Kenya, as he'll tell us, but other governments as well. Prof has a career in the public sector that spans over 23 years, transforming the public sector through training, curriculum development, evidence-based policy research, and policy advisory. He is the deputy chairman of the African Management Development Institute Network, and he has contributed to the implementation of the African agenda, such as the AU Agenda 2063 and the SDGs. Please rumble for Prof. Next up is Paulina Nzisa. Paula, she is a Rugby Africa Exco member, chairperson of the Women's Rugby Advisory Committee. Please rumble properly. Professionally, she worked in the banking sector for over 20 years in various senior roles until 2021 when she decided, forget about this thing. She retired. And she found her own consultancy, which focuses on governance, compliance, and fundraising primarily for non-profits. She's also a World Rugby Board member, and until 2017, served as a director of the Kenya Rugby Union, where she was in charge of both community and women's rugby. Please, do what? Rambo, all right. Next, we have Mr. Kennedy Karisa. Rambo, please. He's a General Secretary of the Truckers Association of Kenya. He understands a lot about logistics and the logistics industry. As a SG of the Truckers Association of Kenya, which is a SACCOs promoting responsible truck trading policies and highway safety, the SACCO has a membership of over 12,000 individual members countrywide, making the association the largest truck owners association that offers advocacy and links stakeholders and policymakers to the industry and also to what needs to happen. Our final here is Mr. David Lawrence. Please rumble. David is a principal marketing associate in charge of partnerships and sustainability, and a sustainability champion as well at the Standard Chartered Bank. He is here to tell us a lot about what they do at the bank. We all know the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, don't we? How many people have run that apart from Dr. Mungai? How many? Right? See, you have many followers here. So we'll get into this conversation, and as I go and sit, let's acknowledge the fact that we have John the Baptist with us in the building, called Dr. Edward Mungai. She's the president of all matters. So, Lawrence is the one. It will be checked that you might have. Yes, so that when I ask you the question, you don't start from that point of view. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? So we've been told what the G is that we are discussing today, right? Dr. Mungai has taken, what was it, Dr. Musyoka, 13 minutes to just tell us this story and lay the foundation for us. The G in governance, it's an important element. Many people think about the S, the E, but we don't actually see the G. And that's why Isuzu East Africa and Strathmore have decided, let's actually bridge the governance gap. So first question goes to you, Rita Kavashe. COVID was here the other day, and COVID did many things to many companies in this country. Isuzu East Africa, it's like it was just wading through the water. It's like the amphibious trucks. But what is it that Isuzu did to adapt its decision-making processes during this COVID-19 pandemic? First of all, how many days did you shut down? After how many days did you reopen? How many staff did you lay off? What loss of business did you undergo? And if none of those, why?
I'm old. Please take me step by step. So thank you very much, and welcome to this seminar. And governance is the subject we are talking about, and decision making normally is anchored on some values, how we make decisions. So for us at Isuzu East Africa, our decisions, our actions, how we engage with ourselves, with our shareholders, with our customers, is anchored on our values and our purpose. So when COVID came, we were faced with a big risk, a health risk. But because one of our values is safety, it was very easy to engage with our employees because they understood the importance of health and safety. Our systems, our processes, our rules and regulations within the company were anchored on safety. So for instance, if you're walking in our facility, there's a walkway. You just don't walk. You don't speak on your phone as you walk. We do periodic health check for our employees. So when this COVID pandemic hit us, we were able to connect with our employees because that is how we do our things on a day-to-day basis. So when we said you must wear masks, there was no debate. Everyone supported and wore masks. So we were able to quickly protect the people. So our decisions then were easy to make from that point of view because the first priority for us was people's health and well-being. So wear a mask, clean your hands, sanitize, and do all that. We were able to quickly deploy those tools first to protect ourselves. And then we asked ourselves, so where is the next risk? For us, the next risk was, of course, first complying to government protocols because, you know, there was lockdown and there was going to work, stay at home, and all those elements. So we quickly, again, because we are a company that respects rules and regulations, because that is part of our values, that is part of our governance tools, then we are quickly to comply 100% with those rules because they also supported our well-being as a company. So we quickly were able to organize ourselves. And because we are resilient, then we asked ourselves a good question. What is that we are going to do today, as Dr. Mungai said, so that we don't compromise the future? That is sustainability, right? According to Professor's definition. So then we said, okay, so what is in this? What is here? What do we need to do? So we knew we needed to scale down very quickly our operations because there was completely lockdown. So if we had investment decisions to make, we had to stop those and preserve the resources so that we can be able to live the next day. So we didn't fire any employees at all because, again, because of resilience. Then we asked ourselves, so what does this situation, what are we learning? What are we seeing? And by the way, I called a baraza in the factory final line because as a CEO, I didn't have the answers. So decisions were not resident on one person because this pandemic was a challenging situation for everybody. Nobody knew the answers. So as a leader, I needed to get input from my team. So we called a meeting, big meeting. I told the staff, this situation is a serious situation. I don't have answers, but for you, the priority is your safety and the safety of your families. We shall come back to you to tell you what else we have thought about. Quickly regrouped back with my leadership team and asked ourselves, so what is here? So we said, okay, first, the safety of our people and the safety of our community is important. What do we have? We're in the business of making vehicles, right? We have trucks. Water is needed. Water was the most needed item. So we organized for sanitation, water stations. We went to Mukuru. We went to all the neighborhood. We had buses. We donated buses to carry doctors and nurses from KU and all these places. So we deployed our resources to support the community. Then the next thing that we did, we said, okay, so what is here? And actually we branded all these trucks and all that. Quickly the government came and said, okay, now we need trucks. We need water. Who was to supply those trucks? Already we had painted the opportunity that there was to supply the community with water with our trucks. And NMS came and said, deploy supply trucks. Exactly the way you have created this one that you have supplied to support the community, we need more. So we realized, okay, what else can we do? We are in that business. So opportunity came. We looked for actually opportunity within what we could supply. And we got orders. And we called our suppliers, we called our dealers. There was constant communication with them. When the window opened to open back, we were the first to come back. And by the way, we didn't fire, we didn't reduce salary. At the end of it, we paid bonuses.
That year.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we've heard here is agile decision making, quick action, and quick action to think, how do we remain afloat? Not just as a company, as an organization, but also as a people. How do we ensure that we and our key stakeholders, that's our staff, stay afloat, remain alive? I mean, this was a life and death situation. And then scenario mapping and seeing then what do we do next? How do we prepare for whatever we don't know about, okay? Now, Prof, you as the boss of the Kenya School of Government, I want to come to you, because there's what then you teach people who are working in government to do and to think about. But I just want to start from the very beginning. When people are coming to the Kenya School of Government, do they come to the Kenya School of Government to learn how to operate in government, or do they understand the governance aspect as they're coming in, as fresh students report to you? Or even if they're not fresh, some of them have been working in government, but they're coming for a new cause. What's their perception of governance?
Thank you so much. For Kenya School of Government, our responsibility and our mandate is to build the capacity of public servants to be efficient, to be effective, to be responsive, to be agile. I think that is the bit of decision making. Also to be citizen-centric and fit for purpose for as far as the transformation and citizen service delivery is concerned. The question therefore then is whether that loaded, mandate is realized at once or is kind of a transformation that will take time. Wherever they come, and the people that we deal with are these people who makes decision in government. Such as, Madam Director here, she will come for corporate governance training and so on and so forth. I think when she was in so many other boards, we interacted. So wherever they, interact with our participants, these are people who are learned and they come with their issues and the challenges and the problem. It's not like we have to, give them the direction, but we have first and foremost to interact with them, get to understand their needs. And it is therefore then at that point, then we provide, direction. In government, what governance is all about, governance and government goes hand in hand. Because government is all about citizen-centric service delivery, and governance is all about people. I think as our doctor said, it's all about, and the expectation of, the public servants is that if you look at even our constitution's Article 73, talks about the public trust is built where, therefore, then, in as far as that aspect is concerned, the public servants are supposed to bring honor to the nation and dignity to the office. So as you come, therefore, then, to interact with us, the whole issue of governance is normally built on three critical aspects, and we are very good in that in the public service. There's only one weak point, which I will later expound, not now. The first thing that we normally do is the whole issue of visioning. We have Vision 2030. We have strategic plan in our institution. The second bit is all about inspiration and the action that is required. And we inspire, through quite a lot of things. The weak point is the third point. That is the whole issue of agility in the implementation of the vision and the bit of the policies that we develop. That is the weak point, because we normally have a very beautiful policies, and some of you work in government, you know that. We have a very beautiful policies. We inspire people through those policies. And when it gets to the bit of implementation is the challenge. And that is what we normally talk to them. The issue of governance is all about the implementation. And that is the weak point. And that is the basic aspect that we normally take up. And that is where then the sustainability bit of it will come in. Because It can only be sustained when you implement what you said as a vision you have shared, and so on and so forth. But the bit of implementation, we are very good in celebrating intention. In government, if you look at, we launch strategic plan, but then if you ask them at the beginning, what are you launching? Those are the intention. There are no results. You are just launching the book, and there's nothing in it. And at the end, you end up celebrating intention, but no results. So, and those are the critical things sometimes you look at under governance. How then can we move toward the implementation, moving away from celebrating the intention with no results, and so on and so forth?
Thank you very much, Prof. Please, let's appreciate him and acknowledge him. I'll come back to you because you said there are some areas and you see some challenges in implementation of this. But I want to ask, you know, in private sector is thinking shareholder return, shareholder value. And the management is just focused on that and looking at the other critical stakeholders, and it's a bottom line. In the public sector, everybody is a shareholder and everybody wants a return, but not necessarily a financial return in terms of a dividend. They want a service, but there are diverse groups of people who are expecting service. And this is when our inclusion comes in. How do you train those who are working in the public sector to think inclusive governance, to think about those who are completely marginalized and those who are not, and those who may be marginalized in future?
Thank you so much. Once again, in government, and I think Madam Director here knows that there are so many policies that govern every aspect of what we do. There are policies on inclusivity, there are policies on sustainability, there are policies on, you know, the areas about the marginalization. But again, the question is all about the implementation. So the whole issue here is the inclusivity is there. I mean, there's a policy about diversity. How can we bring on board all these people? Like there's a 5% employment for those people with disability. But to what extent have we complied is then the issue of the implementation, because we keep giving an excuse and saying that, no, these people with disability don't apply for this job, so therefore then we don't get them. And there are those people, like the other day, quite a number of institutions were invited by Parliament to come and explain as to how out of almost 50, you know, ethnic groups that we have in Kenya, only you managed to employ 17 out of 50, which is less than even 30%. So the question is why? It's because of, you know, we keep explaining and saying that there are historical injustices. Even me, as Nura, when I first, you know, joined Kenya School of Government, you find those people there. You can't sack them. So what do? You keep adding the problem into problems and so on and so forth, because you keep employing the same people who are employed even in the past. What do? They are the same people who will apply. Out of like the challenge that we have in the service is that there is also the same, you know, constitution that says don't discriminate. Again, you can't wake up and say now Kikuyus are, you know, we have over 30% as you know, described. So what if they are the only ones who applied? You can't say that now let's forget about it. Let's wait for other tribes to apply. And these tribes are not applying. What do? So there's a policy issue. I mean, there's also a policy issue and there's a reality. So the reality is the people who are applying for this job are those people we are saying now they are over, you know, these people we have oversubscribed. So there are so many in what do you do? But the ones that you are looking for are nowhere. They are not applying. So you can't force them. So what do you do? Even this, and so therefore one of the things that we keep telling, you know, public servants is that get out of your comfort zone. Be innovative in reaching out to these people. Advertise even in the local radios. Why can't you just go out and advertise in the local radios? But even then, there's an issue of do not discriminate. So you can't then put aside these people have applied and wait for other people to come all the way from Turkana to take a position which is available and they are not ready. So we keep telling them, okay, follow the policies, but also the flexibility of it is also critical. Be innovative. Look for these people out there, but if it's not forthcoming, you can't keep and, you know, sit there and wait for who, and it's not forthcoming. Again, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, you know, it is a balance between, again, your need as an institution, and that I think a director will speak to that, and also complying with the policies. The compliance is important. Again, you keep then getting the same people, And again, this is a competition. And the diversity is all about getting people, from different diverse backgrounds. And some of it is, again, the whole issue of marginalization. And we keep telling our people that, again, even you, as much as we talk about marginalization, then also psychologically, mentally, and emotionally, and everything, please don't, kind of marginalize yourself. Get out of this marginalization mentality. Come out, because marginalization is not about sympathy, because sympathy in the public service is not raw material for success. You can get out of this mentality so that then you can also be uplifted. Compete with others in an equal, share. Disability is not about, inability to do certain things. It's about you taking a position and knowing that when to contribute how, so that then you get out of all this bit of let me get a sympathy, so that then through sympathy called marginalization and all this inclusive, kind of aspect, then we'll get out of it. But we teach them, we talk to them, we ask them, okay, you must comply because that is a requirement. But again, the inclusivity is all about also getting out of the way in an innovative way, reach out to people that cannot be reached in a way, so that then we'll be able to balance, as required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Coming from the Burju community is an added advantage. Kikuyus need not apply. Terms and conditions apply. David, I want to come to you. You're sustainability champion at Standard Chartered Bank, and we know that Standard Chartered has worked for many years now with particularly the marathon. And the marathon is one way in which we see the bank and its push for sustainability, for support of communities, for all the programs that you've run with through the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Let's go to the very top. How is decision making done? To ensure that first this marathon is aligned with the bank's visions and goals, and that then you make sure, like what Prof is saying, that you're not just celebrating another day that people come out on a Sunday to run, but beyond that, there's actual impact. How is that decision making done? I told you. Did I not tell you?
It's been on the entire time.
It's this guy. It's not you. I know.
Yes. Thanks, Latif, for that question. I'm really happy to be here. If you look at this panel, yeah, doctors and professors, I'm like, okay. But all is good, yeah. Number one, thanks, Dr. Mungai, for setting, the tone. And he actually really helped me crystallize my message today. As Standard Chartered, we actually bank Isuzu. They're one of our clients. Strathmore is one of our strategic partners in terms of implementing our sustainability initiatives, especially on the community side. So we feel at home, we feel proud, to see one of our biggest partners and one of our clients actually driving conversations around sustainability. As a bank, we start from the top. And I think Dr. Mungai said, if it doesn't start from the top leadership, then it doesn't trickle down. And sustainability is actually a pillar globally. It's one of our strategic pillars as a bank. And under sustainability, we look at our operations. So the environmental aspects, water usage, power supplies, all that, we look at our operations. And then there's a community angle, and I'll come to the marathon question just to talk about the community aspect of it. And then there's a business angle. Again, it's looking at people, planet, and profit. And we're an organization that, maybe the fourth most profitable now financial institution in Kenya. But again, if you look at our sustainability aspects of the business, we have products that are, ESG. If you're an investor and you want to take up, green bonds and stuff like that, the bank has already made that step to actually optimize and actually bring products that are, sustainable. If you look at now the community aspect, and that's where the marathon comes in, and seeing Eliud here, we know that World Athletics has actually come up with principles around sports for climate action. And as a marathon, as an event, we've actually borrowed a lot from that. And you look at the aspect of environment, every runner gets a tree. If you come to run the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, you'll get a tree seedling to go. And in partnership with Arboretum, we're actually now at 1 million seedlings to try and address that aspect of the environment. If you look at on the climate side, we made a decision 2 years ago, and through partnership with Tetra Pak, we've eradicated single-use plastic in our water distribution. You know, for a marathon, the biggest contributor to plastic is actually water. And our Tetra Packs is biodegradable. So now if you come to run the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, the water pack that you get is actually something that is recyclable and is 100%. And that reduced 90% of our single-use plastic emissions, right? If you look at air quality, we actually work with NEMA to measure air quality before, during, and after the event. And the statistics that we get out of that actually informs us of what we need to do to improve on the quality of air for the runner, because you've seen marathons being postponed, you know, or delayed, like in Tokyo, I think maybe 2 years ago, so that because it's too hot. So climate change is real and it's impacting sports. So if you look at what we're trying to do, and I was talking to Dr. Musioke, was telling me we wanted to do some tree planting along your route. So we need to, you know, talk and see how we can actually improve on the environmental aspect. Again, waste management. So we partner with Sakataka to recycle 100%. I think this year we hit 97% of all the waste generated. And this is really important to us because, again, if you look at the principles that World Athletics is driving, because our race is a label, actually, is a World Athletics race label, is how do you manage your waste? How do you report it? And then the advocacy aspect. Do you talk to your participants? Over 25,000 runners, you know, come for the marathon. And we emphasize the aspect of sustainability, the importance of tree planting, the importance of carpool to the event. Don't drive by yourself, right? Or use our shuttle services to reduce the emissions, you know, that you leave when you come for an event. So those are some of the aspects that we do, and it's driven from the top of the organization. And I'm happy to see Kellen here, who is actually our board chair, being part of you know, the leadership that is driving this conversation and implementing this in our organization.
Thank you very much. Let's stamp for him. Tafadhali, acknowledge him. Are we getting the gist of what Dr. Mungai, evangelist Dr. Mungai, told us about the G in governance? Bridging the gap, bridging the G. Are we getting it? Are we moving closer there? Okay, I'll be coming to you with the questions, so be prepared, okay? But I want to come to Eliud, EGH, and ask you, because you have been in this, you have participated in this for a while, and Mike will be brought to you. You have run marathons, you have governed your own self in terms of your own discipline, and you keep saying discipline, personal discipline is a big thing. But then sports is run in organizations, in bodies. There's the athletics have their own body. Rugby, and I'm going to come to rugby next. They have a body. The football, they have a body. I just had an election in Kenya. What role does governance play in the leadership of sports associations and making sure then that sport is promoted and practiced the best way?
Thank you, Latif. I want to say first in sport, governance circle is integrity by itself. And integrity in sport is doing the right thing, even if nobody's watching you. So the moment we actually swallow integrity tip into our blood, then fairness will come in. After fairness actually is coming in, then we love transparency. If all these things comes in, then our organizations like World Athletics Kenya, Rugby Union, then they will have the right rules actually which can promote safety to our athletes. And if all these things actually, if you call all these things governance, then we will enjoy, and you know, that cup will not be there. And the only thing which we are losing between maybe sportsmen and the organization to bridge the cup is something called inaction. Nobody's acting.
Everybody knows that something should be done. Somebody should do it. but nobody's doing it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate Eliud here. It's about integrity, doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, and making sure that there is transparency because you're accountable. Now, I want to come to you then, Paula. How do we ensure that there is transparency in decision-making processes in our sports organizations that then enhances that governance for the sustainability of the sport?
Thank you very much. And I'll build on what Eliud has said, because we're all in the same sector. And maybe the first thing that I just would like to share is the rugby story, and especially from an environmental, sustainability and governance point of view. And we have in rugby what we call, we don't talk about ESG, we talk about ESP. So we're Environmental Sustainability Plan 2030. That's actually what we launched. It was launched in 2022. And what we did is we actually began with what we called a sprint. So the sprint was for a lot of reasons that have actually been spoken to by a lot of people here today. You're hearing everybody make reference to accountability. Everybody's making reference to execution. Everybody's making reference to taking everybody with us. And the purpose was of the sprint within the governing body of rugby, that's World Rugby, which is generally where most of the decisions come. Then they trickle down to what we call the regional associations. So Rugby Africa is one of 6 rugby associations around the globe. And then the decisions from the regional association then trickle down to our federations. So locally, you've got Kenya Rugby Union, so one of the members. So when you look at us as a global body, just to give you context as I make the next set of just comments, is the fact that we have 500 million fans. We have a data tool, so that is a fact. 500 million fans globally. We have 10 million players. We have 141 federations that are affiliated through regional associations to the mother body, that's World Rugby. So that in itself tells you the kind of footprint we have. And as such, taking that into account, years ago, and primarily in 2022, we acknowledged the fact that we are stewards of the planet because we're a big consumer of the planet. And so before I answer the question directly, we decided to go by 3 themes and 1 critical pillar. The critical pillar was governance. The other three themes which were critical to us because of the nature of sport and being an outdoor sport was climate action. So being able to lobby all those stakeholders that I've talked about, our fans, our players, putting our voice to this subject and coming out to say, we acknowledge, we make the statement, and we're saying we're taking responsibility as one of the stewards. The second thing was a circular economy, recognizing that. And I think Standard Chartered spoke beautifully to that. The issue of recycling. We use poles in the sport. There's a lot of water that is used within the sport. We use a lot of electricity. And just again to give you context, we're not just a large organization, but we are also in our own right a profitable business. Why? We have some of the major tournaments in the world. You'll be familiar to the World Cups. We have a World Cup 7s, World Cup 15s, and currently ongoing, for those who are familiar to rugby, is a HSBC 7, which just concluded in Cape Town. The second leg just concluded this weekend. You know, those are major tournaments. What does that mean from a sustainability point of view? We're using a lot of power. We're using a lot of water, like everybody else, you know? So all those things, that's why we're saying that we are a steward. So when it comes to the issue of governance, which is a key riding pillar, one of the things that we noticed, and that's why we call it a sprint for 2022 and 2023, is that for us to be able to do this for the long haul, and I think you've had a lot of people here say, sustainability is not about CSR. It's not about cosmetics, as Daktari actually called it. It's actually about looking at it for the long haul. It's about we taking responsibility today and actually doing what we need to do for the next generation of leaders, of our children, and the people who will come after us to lead. And one of the things that we discovered is that leadership is a team sport. It really is. Because for you to address the issue of corruption, you actually need to work with various stakeholders. And just very quickly, some of the groups that I would say, or some of the things that one would do to counter corruption would be having an independent steering committee. That in itself is one of the first major, major things to do. Now, we all understand that sports is a complex animal. I know a lot of the stuff sometimes we read in the news is not very positive, especially when it comes to an issue of governance. But I believe that having independent steering committees would work. Now, if I looked at sport and I separated myself from the subject of administration, and I was sitting on your side, of this auditorium, what would I be looking for? I'd be looking for trust. I'm looking to see, do their beliefs align with what I believe? And is there integrity? So how do you get that? And I think it's been said by a lot of people, and it's the same thing that I'm going to say. It's transparency. We really do need that. How do you get the transparency? We have a document that is very critical when it comes to the governance of sport, and that's the Constitution. The interesting part is, if you actually go to the website of Kenya Rugby Union, whether you go to Athletics Kenya, go to football, which has just concluded its election, you'll actually find this document public. If you actually make time to read this document, you actually find it's a very well-researched document and actually addresses a lot of aspects when it comes to governance. And when I talk about aspects, what am I talking to? Who is suitable to sit in a board? Do they have a charter or a code of conduct? It exists for almost all these organizations. Do they have tenures for the board? They exist. And yet we still see the infighting and everything that goes on. So part of fighting the corruption comes on creating the awareness, not just to those who are being elected, but to those who elect as well. It's very important. So that when these people deviate from things that are already part of the Constitution and duly embedded, they can actually hold them accountable. So the disclosure is what I'm talking about. Let's do more work than just putting them on the website. Let's work with the various stakeholders and actually make this public knowledge through actually public advocacy and public training. I think that would be a good place to start.
Oh, very good. Very well said. Make sure everybody knows and then have independent structures within the bodies that are also holding the leaders to account. It's about accountability. Mr. Karisa, you're the Secretary General of the Truckers Association of Kenya. And just to give a brief of what you told me about the association was formed from a need to formalize a very informal sector that has many people who own trucks, they operate trucks, each one of them is running their own independent business. And you and a few others came together and decided, you know what, this has to change. But you're talking about bringing together hundreds of people who are owners by themselves, they're running their own businesses, they're successful, they have been doing it without you, and you're coming to tell them that, if we come together, then we can do better. It's a lot of hard work just to convince people. So how do you get that? How do you, first of all, convince all these people to come together as an association of business people who are not like-minded, they're just operating in the same industry, and how do you manage them?
Thank you, Latif, for that. First, I'd like to appreciate everyone here, and thank you for this. You do notice our industry before was very fragmented, and unlike the companies that were very organized, with a very good structure and everything, in the transport sector, it was fragmented, it was chaotic. There was no organization. 90% actually of transporters are actually owner-operators in this country. They own, they operate, and it also goes further. It's owner, operator, manager. So it's very hard to bring these people together. But we came to the realization that 90% of all truck problems on the road or everything, we normally call the road our office, because for you, Latif, you'll probably go to the office, park your vehicle until evening again when you're going back home. But for our nature of our business, we are on the road. The road is our office. So we realized that 90% of the problems on the highway, on the road, on this road, are actually the same all over Kenya.
So whatever challenges the transporter is facing in Mandera, and whatever challenges the transporter is facing in Mombasa and Lamu and everywhere, 90% of those problems are the same. So a few years back, we sat down and decided, how do we bring all these people together so that we can have a voice, so we can speak as one? Because you do realize once you're fragmented, there's so many things that go astray. You know, you cannot lobby. One time we went to lobby for something and we were asked, who are you? So you say, I'm Kennedy Karisa. And who is Kennedy Karisa? But when you go and tell them, look, I am Kennedy Karisa, representing Truckers Association of Kenya with a membership of over 25,000. People listen.
Yeah.
So how do we bring this informal sector and make it really formal? So we decided, we thought about, do we start a company? And with so many companies, everybody's operating in their own. So how do you tell John that you need to come and sit with Peter, form a company and become shareholders? It was a bit difficult. So we thought of a way of bringing them through savings and credit cooperatives, SACCOs. So according to the nature of your business in transport, because also transport has several segments, there are transporters who transport different things. We clustered them. That was about way back from 2014 to 2017. So we clustered them into SACCOs. So by 2017, we were around 37 SACCOs countrywide, and everybody started seeing the benefits. We could now lobby. We could go and sit with the government agencies and actually negotiate over certain aspects. While we were with Latif, I remember a scenario I was telling Latif earlier, that there was one time somebody had imported eggs using his truck from Uganda. And coming in, passed via the Webuye Bridge, everything is okay. Came down to Gilgil, everything is okay. Coming to Mlolongo, the person was told one axle, the rear axle, is heavier by 2 tons. You need to move the 2 tons in front. It's a closed body, 10-tonner truck. Eggs. Eggs. You're told to move 2 tons of eggs. And when I looked at the losses the person was making, it was really hurtful, but that was then. Now, we go to lobby. We told the government, in the interest of trade, let us remove some non-trade barriers. You know, there are trade barriers, you know, customs and all those things. But then there's the non-trade barriers, like time wastage at the weighbridge. People would waste an average of 4 hours just, shifting the cargo and everything. So we said, in the interest of trade, and since we are lobbying for the SACCOs, and we are this much, for local transporters, especially those ones doing agricultural produce and building materials, this was another thing. Our drivers have weighing scales with their eyes. They actually don't know that they can look at the truck where it's loaded and they can actually tell the tonnage, that they're not breaking the law. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of a sand transporter. A sand transporter goes to Kajiado, picks up sand. It's okay. He knows his tonnage by looking at it. Along the way it rains. What happens? The vehicle gets heavy. So when they get to the weighbridge, it's overloaded. So how do we solve this? So we said we negotiated with the government, the agencies in charge, and we told them, for goods that you cannot define weight from source, not everybody has the capability of owning something like that. That's just one example. As in, for goods that you cannot define weight from source, and it's local, it's for manufacturing, it's for building, it's for whatever it is for, let there be some sort of allowance that if you get this person with this, but does not exceed this, you actually look aside for a moment. It's not corruption, it's just negotiation. That you look aside, because this is a person who, there's no person who goes out there with the intention to break the law. But sometimes it happens. So we brought those, having the SACCO movement, having to come together as a group has really helped us in actually operational efficiency. So that's what I can call it. Because our members have the confidence to actually move together. Were it not for these SACCOs, by the way, which are 145 SACCOs. We have SACCOs even in far-flung areas where I've never been, like Mandera. But they come. And it's because they look at the value that the SACCO is adding to their business, and they realize that this is the way to go. Right. It is not regulation. It is not regulation that trucks should be in SACCOs. So we are conducting what we call self-regulation. In fact, now is when the government is telling us, I don't know, we want trucks to be in SACCOs because we're like, we've been there 10 years ago. You bring it ago, and I think what he was saying about, what Prof was saying about, we have these plans. We have the plans, they are on paper. They look very good. Those booklets are very nice if you read them. But it's the implementation that doesn't occur. So we have managed to do that. Right. And we have made sure, again, within our association, each region is represented because we've divided the country into 10 regions. So we have, our board consists of 20 people. Out of these 20 people, 2 come from every chapter. We call the regions chapters. We have 10 chapters. So we have a sitting board of 20 people. So everybody feels represented. Everybody feels a part of the association and a part of this movement. So it is something that ought to happen also in other sectors. Right. Because self-regulation actually right now is the way to go. Yes.
And it comes from leadership. If you have a good leader, if you have a good leadership structure, then the others will follow suit. The others will see, yes, we can come, we can coalesce, we can benefit from this. The government can also see that there's some thought that is being put into this, and they'll also work with you and support you. I want to come to Dr. Wasike, but before I get to Dr. Wasike, I want to ask the audience. Raise a hand up if you are over 18 years old. If you're underage, please register again. Now, a mic will be coming to you, and I'd like you to just raise a hand. I want to ask what we all understand by the terms ethical leadership. What's ethical leadership to you? Just raise a hand. There's no wrong answer, okay? We listen, we don't judge. If you don't raise a hand, then I'll come to you. It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Yes, my name is Ambassador Esther Waringa, the President of Public Service Governance, Ethical Leadership. It's basically what is stipulated in the Constitution of Kenya, Chapter 6. It is about matters of integrity, transparency, accountability, and exactly what he has said, the power of self-governance, and what Professor said from the School of Government about that management of the management of the person themselves. Yeah, the way you handle things in a particular institutions. Like, for example, we are not going to fight corruption through taking cases to the courts. Already we have a backlog of cases in our judiciary. We are going to fight corruption through the power of ethical leadership, through the power of self-governance, through the power of transparency, through the power of positive mindset and positive change in each and every individual. So this is the clarion call to private and public sectors that, bottom line, ethical leadership is a must, even in the Republic of Kenya, if we are to fight corruption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Balozi. Thank you very much. Another hand, your thought, ethical leadership. Pick someone. You have the power. Delegated authority, pick somebody, give them the mic, let them stand up and tell us. What do you think of ethical leadership? What's your own definition and feeling of ethical leadership? Would you nominate? Oh, your God. Yes, you've been picked.
All right. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm not sure how I can do better than what Ambassador has done, but perhaps just a deeper dive is to say ethical leadership really must be embedded on the positive values that are unstated but stated within any family, community, society, and nation. That thing that you know, if your mother saw you doing, if your father saw you doing, based on a correct and positive personal value set, would be the right thing, that they would commend you. They would say, well done, my daughter, well done, my son. So I think ethical leadership is really that unstated, that informs good moral character, good behavior, good conduct, good character. Asante.
So you can tell, you don't have to define it, but you can tell. You can tell when there's ethical leadership. You can tell when a leader is leading with integrity. And you didn't introduce yourself, huh? You know, that was rule number 1. Give her the mic again, so everybody can know who gave us that answer.
All right, thank you. My name is Eva Muraya, proud alumni of this wonderful school. I team lead Brand Strategy Design Group, which is a partner to Isuzu East Africa. Really happy to be here and I'm enjoying the conversation.
Asante sana. So Dr. Wasika, then we come to you before we go back to the audience. Did they get it on ethical leadership? What is ethical leadership from your own understanding, from practice, from so many years in all these organizations as a human resource person and lead and someone who thinks of sustainability? What's ethical leadership and how can it help organizations to steer and stay in the path for the long cause?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. The question you are asking actually has to do with whether you have a good or a bad name. That's what ethics does to people and to organizations. If you are an ethical organization, you have a great name. And we are very proud to be on stage here as Isuzu East Africa, an ethical organization. And there are many advantages arising out of being ethical. At organizational level, when you have a good name, you earn great friends. The reason Eliud partners with Isuzu is because of the ethical standards. He would have picked any other brand if there were ethical issues within Isuzu East Africa. This good name, just being here at Strathmore, we are here, Strathmore, because of the caliber of this organization. We are getting friendship here because of that ethical leadership. It's a good name. I get great satisfaction when I go around and even in very remote areas, I see Kenyans are so proud to wear an Isuzu t-shirt. This brand identification is so deep because there is pride in just associating with an organization that is ethical and having a good name. Now, there are significant benefits also. If you are an ethical organization, you retain your shareholders for a very long time. I'm happy Faith is here, KDC. Our shareholder, we are getting to 50 years next year. We've had very stable shareholders because they don't want to run away from this organization that has a good name, that is ethical. When you retain funds from shareholders, you invest, you can do a lot. This is captive capital. You can grow your organization just from being an ethical organization. Then you're able to control risk eliminate risk from the organization. If you have ethical leadership, you don't hide things. You don't do things under the carpet. And within the organization, for last week, we were taking our employees through annual medical surveillance. This is part of ethical leadership, ensuring that the workplace is safe, conducive, is not causing harm to employees who are working for you. And when you do things like those, you eliminate risk from the organization because they will be discovered down the line. Some employees may go to court out of this cover-up. Also, you are able to win the confidence of suppliers if you are ethical. They hold you in high esteem. They plan with you. You negotiate in a very transparent way. You don't create conflicts amongst your suppliers. And therefore, you are able to build a very sustainable supply chain just from being ethical. As a HR person, I have had great time, easy time, hiring the best from the market. And when candidates appear for interviews, they talk about these soft things. They talk about leaders, they talk about Rita, they talk about what do we do before they even talk about our market share. Right. They talk about the people. They talk about our good name. And therefore, we are able to attract the very best from the market. We are able to retain the best employees. Our retention level is 97%. Very high retention level. Our engagement levels are global standard, 97%. And it's because when employees feel they are in an environment that is not taking advantage of any team member, they are very proud working for the organization. There is everything that goes with ethical leadership, Eric.
Thank you very much. And yeah, well, with an MD who's worked in the company for 30 years and other staff who've worked in the company for just as long, it tells you something about the organization, about the leadership, and about how it nurtures future leaders as well. And maybe that's what, Rita, you're doing. So, Rita, you are the chair of this board. You also sit in other boards as well. And at that level, at the governance level, at the board level, you then, of course, have to steer an organization into thinking the importance of good governance. Just give us that experience from sitting in various boards and having those conversations at board level. What is it that you have to do to ensure that there is proper governance structures in place, proper accountability mechanisms in place, and even selling that to other board members and the organization itself, that this is what we need so that we can stay and remain afloat?
So we go. We go back to the whole issue around what does the organization stand for? What is the value of this organization? What are the values? What is the purpose of this organization? Because I want to emphasize that, because that is where all decision, actions by leadership, actions, how we make decisions and all that. So boards normally would be very structured on key governance instruments. There is clear separation of responsibility between the board itself and management, because there can't be governance conflict if there is no clear separation when it comes to board conversation. But it starts back. So because we have values, we have system, we know what is it that we want as an organization or as a board of an organization. And we started from even the recruitment process. Positions are not given at, especially boards for private sector. Positions are not just dished. There is a clear reason to attract certain type of board directors. So you look for fit, you look for skill, you look for diversity. If diversity is an issue, because decisions then are better when you have more diverse individuals in skill, in gender, in expertise to support the board. And right fit, does Rita have the right ethical behavior, success track record, and all that for them to be attracted? Because organizations are looking for people who can represent their brand well. And Fred said, you know, as an individual, you're ethical because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going. Even if you want to borrow money from your uncle, he will give you. If you don't pay next time, he will not give you. So will you have a good name next time? No. So same philosophy. So right fit in terms of selection. How are we selecting? What skills are we bringing? Then as the board, you now have your work plan. You have work to do, and you engage with management, because management are responsible for implementing the vision of the board, the strategy of the board, and all that. So once you have the right fit, both in management and in board, you have separated the responsibilities of board and of management, and now you have a plan to execute. Professor here talked about intentions. In private sector, there are no intentions. Intentions are there, but every year you are accountable. Yep. You have to deliver results. So as a board, you ask yourself, how am I going to deliver results? And every year you measure yourself. There are tools that allow you to measure how effective. He talked about effectiveness. How effective have you been? What lessons have you learned? What did you do well? What didn't you do well? How can you correct next cycle? And next cycle, you measure whether you actually corrected. And there's a clear plan in terms of delivering. So, and once you've delivered the results, then you are accountable to the shareholders. You have to have an AGM that enables you as the board and your senior management to tell your shareholders, what is it that you did? We promised to do in the year 2024, 1, 2, 3. Did we deliver? What did we deliver? Were there challenges? Were there significant changes? Were there risks that you need to tell your shareholders? So that transparency in communicating the results is very clear responsibility of the board, and it's done in an open forum, and that is an AGM. Then there's also accountability to the regulator. For instance, if you're a public listed company, you have the Capital Markets Authority. They check your governance, they check your leadership, they check your legal compliance. There's a thorough process of checking, because you're custodian of people's assets, people's money, shareholders' money. So how are you accountable to the regulator? How are you accountable to the employees of the organization? Because they are a major stakeholder of that organization. So you have a board charter, your work is executed through committees and all that. So governance then is this framework under which you operate in an ethical manner. It's like your Bible, it's your creed. You have to have a creed. Everybody has talked here, whether it is a Truckers Association, it's an association that has got membership, that has got representation, that meets and executes the business on behalf of the people. So the board is just the custodian to execute the mandate, whether it's sports, whether it's Kenya School of Government, whether it's an institution like ours. We work and report to a board. So that framework of governance, the tools that are there, that then we have to implement and be accountable and then responsible. Because when you're put in a position of responsibility, you have the duty of care. Yeah. As an individual employee, as a board director, as a government leader, you have that responsibility of care. And I always say, when you're called to serve, and being called to serve, whether in a board of a public listed company or whether in a school board, it's a big opportunity because to push the agenda of governance, because then you have power to do what is right. So how can we do what is right following the rules that we have set to do what is right?
Thank you very much, Rita. Prepare your questions because I'll be coming to you. If you've got a question to ask, be ready to raise your hand. Carissa, you are the General Secretary. Of course, there's a leadership structure at the Truckers Association, but you are representing an industry that, just like you told us, initially it was fragmented and now you are coming together to start doing things the right way. You've got various stakeholders. You have the members that you represent. You have the government that you have to deal with. Now, 48 governments, the national and 47 county governments. You have various bodies that you must engage with, and you've got your customers. And the customers are individual customers to each individual member of yours, right? How do you, at the leadership of the Truckers Association, then ensure that there is proper engagement across all your members, such that all your stakeholders can sit back and say, yeah, our truckers business in this country is ethical, it's doing the right thing, it's thinking futuristic?
Like I said earlier, apart from the National Management Committee, which comprises of the 20 people, we also have, I mentioned something about 10 chapters. We also have the chapter leadership at the regional level. There is a Secretary General for every region. There is a chairman for every region. And bringing all these people, all these SACCO officials together as the delegates, we call them the delegates, they get to choose their own leadership, and they have the right at any given time, wherever they feel that you are not representing their interests or anything, they can actually recall you. Same as myself, as the Secretary General, because personally I came in representing the North Rift chapter. I was seconded to this position from the North Rift chapter. And then now the board now decided it best that you be the Secretary General. If I do something, or if I go against the interests of the organization, the board can actually recall me. Leave alone the board, the chapter can recall me, and I will stop being the Secretary General. So how have we ensured that all these things happen? It is because we have a structure in such a way that you become accountable. I like what Rita said about every organization. There's a creed. It's like a creed. It's like a Bible. And when you go against the Bible, you become a sinner.
Yep.
That's the Bible. So when you go against this creed again, you've gone against the organizational rules, and it's something that we guard. And again, when it comes to individuals as a person, and again, I reiterate what Rita said again, when you're being called to serve, there's something that all these people saw, from that individual to the circle, they saw something in you. So it is something that, apart from also just protecting your integrity, it is also something that people are looking up to you. They see you are the driver of this bus, you are to take us to our destination. So ethical issues not only guard the organization, but also you as an individual. What are your, people have standards, people have all the expectations and everything. So everybody is expecting that you're dealing with 47, like you've mentioned, 47 counties. You're dealing with partners like Isuzu. You're dealing with partners, the government. What is it that they look to in order to assist in whatever that needs to be done? Ethics. It's not a very common thing in our country, by the way. It's not a very common thing. But when you're ethical, somehow it attracts good partnerships. It attracts good, how do I call it? People listen.
You get respected.
You get respected.
Right.
So ethics and ethical leadership go hand in hand, both for the organization and as an individual. It is something that you cannot separate. You cannot separate the two. We cannot have Rita running Isuzu, a very ethical company, and Rita is unethical. They don't go hand in hand. So if you are running an ethical organization, it starts with you as an individual.
Starts from the top.
Yes.
Prof.
Thank you so much. Eric, let me say that as I sit here and representing quite a number of public servants out there, first let me say, Eric, that I'm really proud to be public servant. The reason is that for public servants, the very intention, as I think Madam Rita said, is to serve, not to benefit yourself. There are so many things. If you talk of ethical leadership in the public service, and I think that is what Kipchoge said, what you say, what you do must be properly aligned and sustained, because you're talking of sustainability here. If what you say and what you do is not aligned and not sustained, then there's no ethical leadership there. So again, consistency is critical, and ethical leadership is a choice. That is why in the public service, we have such a great leaders. We have people who are competent. We have people with capacity and capability. We have people who are ethical. But again, there are groups who decide, they made a choice of, again, going against the ethical leadership. So we cannot generalize in the public service and say that, there's this thinking out there, especially people in private sector, of course, not Madam Rita, because she has, again, there's this thinking that all public servants are corrupt, they are unethical, they are lazy, they are incapable, they have no capacity. There's that thinking out there. Let me tell you, in the public service, we have competent, capable, very, ethical leaders who have capacity and who have sustained. And quite a number of them, Eric, have left such a wonderful legacy. There are quite a lot of wonderful footprint in the public service. Then what is the problem? That then you see all these bad pictures. It's because in the public service, let me tell you, we don't know how to communicate. In the private sector, you are very good in, elaborate communication strategy and all these things. I think Madam Rita has been both in the private and public sector. There are so many things she did in the public sector, but it's not known because in the public sector, we don't celebrate, a lot of results. And that is why today, Eric, we are moving away from performance to the productivity. Today, in the public sector, we are not looking at so much of performance, but we are looking at the aspect of the productivity at individual as well as also in the institutional level. So again, all these things, Eric, put together, public servants, we have a chance, to bring about the change that is required. It's a service. It's such a beautiful place to be. But if we choose then to serve, instead of, being served, because you have this other side, which therefore then you look at. And that is why ethical leadership is all about the values, it's all about the voice, it's all about the virtue, it's all about the purpose that you have for then, because you, as a leader of that institution, you are the vision carrier, you are the value carrier. If the moment you destroy that link of you carrying a different value and the vision, then ultimately you'll not be able to realize, because people are looking unto you. So all leaders in the public service, please let us choose to serve, not to be served. And let us be ethical leaders, because we have capacity to do that, we have capability, and we have a choice. And I'm so proud of being a public servant, Eric.
Thank you very much, Professor Noura. Very well said. And yet, indeed, it's true. We know that, there are very many ethical, well-meaning public servants and public officers, and they are the majority in the public service. The minority are the ones who have gained the notoriety, and because of bad communication as well, the ones who are doing the right job are not being rightly recognized. But let's again appreciate those like Professor Noura who have decided to serve the public. David, I want to come to you, and you also deal as a bank, as an institution, you deal with very many stakeholders. As you're thinking of sustainability, of ethics, of how to move forward, you have to rally people around your cause. It serves you well, of course, because at the end you have to report profitable return to your shareholders. But as an institution that is looking at going beyond the 100 plus years in operation, what is this thing in the governance structure of an institution such as Standard Chartered Bank that then looks at all these stakeholders and says, this is how we are going to engage with all our stakeholders so they can buy into our vision and our idea.
Thanks, Latif. I think it's defined in our valued behaviors as a bank. And it's never settled, so continuously innovating. There's better together, so bringing everybody, both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders on board. And then the most important one is actually doing the right thing. So this is doing the right thing with the clients, with the community that you operate with, doing the right thing with the staff members, doing the right thing as a staff member. Actually, our organization has zero tolerance to ABC, bribery, corruption. That will get you fired, not non-performance. And performance can be managed. You can be put to PIP. You know, the managers work with you to come back into, you know, doing your job. But zero tolerance to anti-bribery and corruption. And the procedures are there. The staff are trained about it. There's a lot of advocacy about it. There are a lot of e-learning that you do around governance and actually doing the right thing with the client and the stakeholders. And to do this is defining our intention, which is doing the right thing. And this is looking at our operations, looking at, you know, the community aspect, looking at the business. As a bank, I mean, we are custodians of resources. And these are resources of your clients, resources of the investors, resources of even the staff members themselves. So doing the right thing is very critical. And it has to come from the top. And you have to define the policies and procedures by which, you know, the business actually operates. And being transparent about, you know, the matrices and the plans that you've set. And all this is public information in terms of how do you want to treat our clients? How do you want to treat our staff members? How do you want to treat, you know, the communities and impact the communities that we work with? And we track and report it. So the transparency element that, you know, the panelists are actually talking about is actually there as well. And the organization is answerable. We have a very able board that actually look at every aspect of the strategy of the bank. And it's a global bank. So this strategy is looked at, you know, as a local market, at a regional level, and even at the group level. So before we come out and say, as Standard Chartered Bank, these are the values that we stand with. This is something that is inside the entire organization across all our markets. And that holds us to a very high standard. I mean, we are regulated by not just Kenyan government, UK regulation, US regulation. So we have to be very ethical because if you're found on the wrong side, the penalties and, you know, the implications on the business is huge because of the regulations that we go through as an international bank. So it is really encouraging to hear. And we work with governments. Over the 100 years, we've worked with different governments to support different initiatives, finance government projects as well. So this is very important to Standard Chartered, and doing the right thing is where it starts from. And it is a culture that is inculcated in every single staff member, from the CEO to the board, to the management, to the person that you meet at the teller. So that's how we run it as well.
Thank you very much. A round of applause, please, for that answer from Standard Chartered. A hand up for questions.
Eric, let me just add, because it is very interesting how governance can be so embedded in business processes. I was trying to open an account with the Standard Chartered Bank. Even they don't want unethical customers. Is that correct? Because of the rigor in filling the forms, where is your social funding, where have you worked, and all that, that told me that this is a good place for me to bank because of the question, the processing of the application that I went through, that I could say, I could tell what type of bank am I going to bank with. So excellent.
Well done. Well done. I'm going to finish this line of questions with you, Paula and Daktari. But before that, one or two questions from the audience. Raise a hand. Mike will come to you. Comment question. There's a the owners of Isuzu are speaking.
Yeah. Mine is not a question, it's just a comment. And this comment, my name is Faith Nene. I work at the Kenya Development Corporation, formerly ICDC, who invested in Isuzu in the early 70s. That time it was GM. And this was an initiative by government. So just to echo what Professor Nura is saying, that government can do great things and government does great things. Who knew that it is government that invested in this great company that started as General Motors, where KDC partnered with General Motors to set up this great company that later sold off their shares to Isuzu. So at KDC, formerly ICDC, through government, on behalf of government, we set up many, many thriving businesses. And up to today, we support businesses to scale up. We de-risk in many sectors, manufacturing, agro-processing. We are looking at the losses we are getting from the so much food we harvest, and it is all lost because it's not taken up. So government is doing great things, but the communication aspect that Professor Nura talked about is the missing link for us. But the other thing that then affects government is when people see the scale of unethical behavior that we have as the government. So if government can redeem itself by doing the right thing, because we are the people seated here who then do the wrong things. If we can redeem ourselves, I think our country will be very far. If Singapore took our policy documents and went and implemented, and today they are a great country, and yet they are a small country the size of Kiambu County. So really, I think we can do great things as government. We have done it, and we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asante Sana. And yes, it's true. So first, I'd like us to appreciate Paula, because Paula was working in the private sector. She decided she's retiring, and she's not just sitting back. She's moving into doing everything else, including putting herself out there to promote rugby for women. And she has done this very well. And now she's recognized, she's sitting in the World Rugby. And this is something we have to acknowledge. So let's do that, please. And you said it, it starts from the person and then it spreads. Now, how do we ensure that we have greater inclusivity in the sport, right? That we see in all sports, we see more women, we see more marginalized groups, we see more people actually getting the opportunity to participate in sport. What's the role of leadership in that and governance?
Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. I'd just like to react to something before I respond to that, because I feel it's very important, and we've got, government representation in the room. And just borrowing from what we've done from a sustainability point of view, I feel that it is very important that the planning phase is actually taken into account. So earlier when I spoke, I said that from the governing body, the decision they took was to run what was called a sprint for the first 2 years before 2024. And the reason of the sprint, and I think it's something we're also here to learn, that we can actually learn from, and our document is actually public. It's on our website. If you go to the World Rugby site, you can download it. It actually has a very detailed plan that's actually been laid out. The idea of the sprint, if you look at the activities that were actually listed, first we began by announcing an intent, After we announced the intent, we actually backed it with a plan of the actions that we were going to take. 2022 to 2023 designated as a sprint. And the purpose of the sprint was to analyze the capacity that would be required to have in place a sustainability plan, what it would cost to have the sustainability plan, the players you would require to have this sustainability plan. So it is possible to move from intents into action if time is actually taken to actually put that in place. And I think it is critical, especially when we speak about it from a government point of view. It is my hope that that happens, because if I've read it correctly, there's public intention by 2029 to have not just public listed companies, but all companies actually report their ESGs, private, public, and otherwise. It's very encouraging to see entities like ISPAC who have actually already come forward and said, we're actually going to be ready by 2027. So the question I'm posing is, what are we doing before the 2027 and the 2029? And I think that is really critical. Before then, you come into 2024 to now begin to create the awareness in terms of now getting people on board, your various stakeholders, from your funds. From a government perspective, it would be with the citizens. Take us on that journey and tell us what it means, what it holds for us in the immediate and what it actually holds for our future. I think it's critical. So just coming to the question that you've posed, Eric, on inclusivity. And I know a lot of times when we talk about inclusivity, it's almost biased and leaning towards the women, that we've been left out, and it's true, it is a fact. The data actually shows that. And when you look at it from a point of sport, when I got in, and I remember when I joined Kenya Rugby Union, and the main chairman said to me, help develop the side for women. It had been on and off women's rugby. When I took it on, there was about 5 girls, very disgruntled. The first media interview, I only did 2 when I was a director for women's rugby at KRU, purely driven by my personal philosophy that it was not a place for me to position myself, to get all the clamor in the media, because a lot of interviews that go on when you're leading in a position like that. I wanted to position the sport, and I wanted the storytelling to be around the women and what we were actually doing to get the sport out there. It was a tough journey. I'd love to say it was easy, but it was tough. But the learnings that I got from that, and having worked through that, the success story at that time is that we grew in 4 years to be recognized as the organization or the federation, that's Kenya Rugby Union at that time, to have the best-led women's unit in Africa, and we're recognized by the governing body, World Rugby. But of great note is that when I was first interviewed, I made a really bold statement. And please note, and in media, we were going through the time when live interviews had just been launched. So imagine this, I think it was MTV. So I'm being interviewed, and what I wasn't aware of, because the concept was so new, was that people were logging in comments, and they were being scrolled under my image, the way you can see there. So there's all these comments, and people are saying, is this woman crazy? Does she know what she's talking about? She never played the sport. Where did you even find her anyway? Those things that people write when you're being interviewed. And the statement I made that attracted so much controversy was that we would be in the Olympics in 4 years. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, Kenya Lionesses made history by being the first female African team to be in the Olympics in 2016. Wow. It is possible. But that does not happen if you do not have the right structures. It does not happen if you do not create an inclusive marketing strategy, which is not just biased or talking about the great and excellent performance of our men's side. In this case would be the Shujaa. And the way they're well representing us. You've got to talk about the other side of the sport as well. So that is very important. We've got to identify and embrace the barriers. We really have to. Because change first starts with creating awareness. So we've got to be aware about what are the barriers that are stopping us from having inclusivity. Are they cultural? Are they religious? Is it race? And how do we actually get over those barriers? Once we acknowledge them, we can get over them. Simple things. If you're an entity celebrate. I worked in the banking sector, a big chunk of my time. I worked for a bank that I'm very proud to be associated with. This is Prime Bank. And you should have seen us on, when there was national holidays. When it was a season for Diwali, we dressed up in Indian gear. We looked forward to it as Africans, And we really, in my view, that's one of the ways of actually getting over the issue, the barrier on race or culture, and being able to take everybody with you. We need to promote awareness when it comes to inclusivity, because sometimes we are ignorant or biased without being aware. So you've actually got to be intentional, whether you're a sporting federation, and in sports, there's nothing more beautiful than actually when you watch people play, and any sport, this is not just unique to rugby, you have two teams on a pitch that literally, French speaking, and the other one is from Spain, and the two can't even hear each other. But they'll actually play the same sport, and they will have a brotherhood, and they will leave that pitch, But then when it comes to the issue of inclusivity, we've also got to embrace the same. And this is creating safe spaces where everybody feels that we belong, we have a place. And again, it starts with creating actually the awareness. And then getting buy-in from the top. We've talked about this from a leadership point of view. It's critical that we know leadership starts from the top, but so does inclusiveness. Because if we're biased from the top, if we're not talking about it, if it's not part and it's not embedded in our sustainability plan, if it's not in our HR policies, I think he spoke to it, because it actually does need to be, for us to be able to foster it, it really will not happen, or it will take a much longer time to happen. So I think this is very, very important that we ensure that this is also part and parcel of the core values. How are we faring from a sporting point of view? It's still a journey. It is still a process, but we are seeing gains. And some of the quick wins that we've done, if I may conclude with that, just from a sporting, and I'll talk about some of the examples of the Rugby Africa. First and foremost, it starts with our constitution. And our constitution states that if you have a president who is Anglo, then the vice president should be Franco. When it comes to representation from a gender perspective, we also have a clause on the percentage. And now we've got 3 women and the rest are men. So that's actually there within the constitution. So just being able to embed that. When it comes to sport, we've now introduced a tool, so embracing data and the aspect of actually having a tool that measures that. And there is an incentive that we provide to the federation that actually have women participation. That's part of fostering and actually calling to inclusiveness. And then also championing from a rugby association, Rugby Africa point of view as a regional body, championing issues that affect or influence inclusiveness, including things like male allies. We become very big at that. And that's in the understanding that the journey of inclusiveness is not just a women's issue or a women's problem. It is a human problem. And sport is a human right. And everybody has a right to be in sport for all. So when we talk about inclusiveness, the men have a role to play. And I always say that when you shed a spotlight on the girl child, it does not in any way dim the light on the boy child. And I will say that again. There's a lot of causes when we talk about gender-based violence, when we talk about celebrating the International Day of the Women, when we talk about celebrating the Day of the African Child, it almost, the girl child, it almost feels like the boy is being alienated and he's being left behind. But let me tell you what we don't say to you publicly. You went before us. You're on whose shoulders we're standing. We're looking to you not to give us a handout, but really to give us a hand up. So rightfully, you are the giants. And that's why there's emphasis on the girl child, because she needs you to give her that hand up. So when we put a spotlight on her, it does not in any way dim your light. It's just saying she needs a little bit of attention. But we're also saying we need you to continue to be an ally so that we can win on this agenda of inclusivity together. Not alone, but together.
What? What? Drops mic. As you can see, our timer is showing us that we've got just 2 minutes to wind up our conversation. And because they don't have questions for us, we are going to ask the final question to Dr. Sike. Dr. This morning we've been talking about, best practices from both the public sector, the private sector, from various spheres. We've seen from big corporations such as yours, into sports organizations, into association, into individuals. In all this, what is the key ingredient that is needed for governance then to trickle down and ensure that the ESG is complete?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And I want first to make comments as a governance professional. If you are a corporate, the registration process starts off with a registration certificate from the Registrar of Companies. That is equivalent to a birth certificate. So legally, corporates are persons. The only difference is they are disabled. That's why we sign checks on behalf of these organizations that don't have hands to sign those checks. We speak for those organizations because they don't have the mouth to speak. And therefore, for everything that we do, if you steal from the organization, you are actually stealing from a disabled person. That is how serious it is to be ethical and to practice best practices. And because we are acting on behalf of a disabled person, we need structures that can help embed these best practices. Now, some of the things that we do at Isuzu include holding ourselves accountable on investments. When Dr. Musyoka was introduced, you heard he's the manager for monitoring and evaluation. That brings accountability in the process. If as a manager, I'm asking for resources from Isuzu to invest, I'm putting my hand up and making myself vulnerable. I have to explain where the money went and how the organization has benefited out of that. So for us, we created this department, monitoring and evaluation, to entrench our accountability standards and holding each other to account, to explain, and to produce results. Secondly, it boils down to what it is that we measure when we define performance as organizations. We measure, in our perspective, we measure performance from business results, the numbers. If you're selling vehicles, we will give you a target for those numbers, but we also measure behaviors. So the overall performance assessment of any employee at Isuzu has those two components. How you produce those results, the results themselves, but also the process, because accountability is in the process. No shortcuts. And we find that very valuable. In fact, our finance director reminds us that every result that is produced without following process is an offside call. We don't count those offside calls. We don't celebrate them. So investing in what it is that you are measuring helps both sides and be a good practice for public and private sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like us to please thank my panelists this morning for this great conversation that we've had, bridging the gap in governance and seeking to understand what governance is all about. So number one, I'd like to ask the question now, because you're not raising hands, so it's just going to be acclamation. Oh, there's one hand out there. So the hands are coming up now. When the time is up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evelyn Kimani from Isuzu East Africa, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and it has actually opened my eyes on the G in governance. We were focusing on the ESG, and recently I had the opportunity to experience effects of good governance from a tracker. I was seated in a matatu heading home, and I was seated next to two ladies. One of them, they were catching up. One of them, let's call her Mary, just came from Mombasa, and she was heading home to see her relatives. She was talking to the lady, telling her how she's going to apply for a new job as a tracker, but it was this has been her life. She was introduced to the tracking, to the, if it's a word, to the truck industry by her aunt, and then now she's going to apply for another job. And currently, she was training her niece and her cousin and her nephew on the same. That shows that I was actually listening to music, but then I started overhearing the conversation. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." That it's safe that through the good governance and the leadership, that it's safe for these ladies to be their long distance tracker. The ladies, she was saying that she moves goods from Mombasa all the way to Rwanda and back. And she was saying that even in the field, no one can beat her. When she's going for interview, the men in the industry are like, "Are you capable of this?" And she tells them, there was somewhere that she said, I asked for them to give me the vehicle, and I drove it all the way from Rwanda to Eldoret, and there was no any stop bys and all that. And that showed me that if when we have good governance and ethical leadership, it's also branches out to all other aspects, that it's safe for everyone to work in. It's now we start enjoying the sustainability aspect of it, because now she learned from her aunt, she did it, and now she's training other people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ethics is infectious.
Thank you. At least, if there's one thing I also want you to notice, that by the time we were starting this movement in 2014, in our association, we only had 8 women truck owners. As of the data, as per the last quarter, we are at over 1,700 women truck owners who are also operators.
Wow.
So we encourage actually starting a women's wing of Truckers Association, so that we can also see how we incorporate the women into this. Truth be told, women are better managers. So thank you for
Truth be told, right?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nefat Nkigenjengwa. I'm the CEO of Autospring East Africa Limited. We supply to Isuzu. It's been a long journey with Isuzu since the late 70s, before some of my colleagues and my friends in this room were born. I will not mention their name for security reasons. But this sustainability governance story, I wanted to make a practical comment by telling you about our relationship with Isuzu, which started in 1979, is still ongoing because of good governance. If there was no good governance, the story would not be, it would be a different story. We employ about 200 people. We supply springs, U-boats, and wiring harnesses to Isuzu. It's not that easy to supply to an ethical and a big name. I can tell you they have a very strong localization team. team, and they've been at it since 1970s when they were GM, now Isuzu East Africa, and it's been a wonderful story. So I want to applaud Isuzu for this initiative to ensure that we sustain the growth, we support more people, because you can see the supply chain effect, the ripple effect. Because we supply to them, we also get other people supplying to us. And I can tell you the numbers that comes out of this relationship, the lives that are impacted by this relationship is incredible. So thank you, Isuzu, and well done.
Thank you. Nefat, in 1979, did you sign the deal with the General Motors then? Did you as Nefat sign the deal?
I was born, but...
So that also says something about your organization and the fact that it has stayed this long doing the same business and continually improving and perfecting what it's doing. So there's governance, yes, on the Isuzu side, and the collaboration from the Isuzu and your organization that also talks about governance. Final hand. There was a...
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is David Adano. I'm a graduate trainee at Isuzu and the class president of the Master of Commerce September 24 intake here at Strathmore. I have two questions, or two things that I want to talk about. These are classroom discussions that you had in class. The first one is about corporate social responsibility and corporate shared values. I was wondering, I know Isuzu is a good company at CSR. What if we start thinking about corporate shared values? That is, you think of programs that impact the environment in a positive way, and at the same time you earn profits from them. For example, Isuzu can think about installing solar panels so that they can save on the cost of the electricity. And then the second point that I wanted to talk about was about the criticisms of CSR. Let me focus on the environmental one. One thing we picked up from our class discussions is that many companies focus on, let's say, planting trees, and then they leave it at that. They do not follow up on the tree. 5 years, 10 years from now, is that tree alive that you planted? So companies need to follow up. Yes, you have planted 10,000 trees this year, but have you followed up on it, or will you follow up on the tree? Will it exist in 10 years from now or 5 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Good comments there as well, and I don't know whether you want to respond to that. You know, when it comes to CSR versus CSV, I think Dr. wants to take it.
Yeah, thank you, Adano, for that great question, and congratulations on the role you have as the class president, you know, as an employee of Isuzu, and you have such a big position in Strathmore. That's also, we are sharing. It's just what you're saying, shared values. Now, there are great things that we are doing. First on energy management. We've done very well. We've started off, we benchmarked when we registered our foundation. Our first point of reference was Strathmore University, where they have great investments in solar. We picked a project on solar, and in March this year, if you, after this session, David, when you get some time, I'll take you up the roof. I climbed the roof the other day and counted those solar panels. There are about 1,040 panels. And from March this year, as at March, our contribution from solar was just 5%. 95% was from the main grid. As we speak now, that has moved from March to date, that has moved from 5% to 40% now. 40% is solar. And from financial standpoint, our electricity bill, we've saved 5 million shillings from March to date. So I'm sure Faith, the shareholder, is happy that we are doing all those great things. So David, that's a great comment. We are on it. And on the other aspects, we promote STEM education as part of our shared values. You know, we, as a technical company, we sponsor students to pursue education because we are the consumers. So there are many aspects which already fit in what you are suggesting. But also, we like getting great ideas from our new employees. So more of your suggestions will be incorporated in our planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fred. We've got to wind up because there is another event that should be taking place shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back on stage Evangelist Dr. Edward John Mungai the Baptist to come and just conclude what he's heard from this conversation.
Well, mine is very short, and it is coming up, you know, from where did we start? And I think Joroge was calling us to action when he said, we've got power in conversations. And I think throughout these 2 or so hours, it was about the welfare of our people. It was about, you know, how can we be able to take that to the next level? We heard very clearly that, you know, good governance impacts people positively. I don't want to talk about the negative things. I just want to talk about the positive things. That good governance impacts people, you know, positively, and for that to happen, there must be better decision making. That better decision making must be led by purpose and must be led by values. To be able to achieve that, you know, we must respect rules. And beyond respecting rules, we must also respect regulations, but also we must diversify. Because in diversification, there is value. We also heard of a very interesting thing, you know, that it must, and the institutions that you are building must be fit for purpose. If you are going to achieve the objectives, they must be fit for purpose. And for them to be fit for purpose is about transforming our citizens. And those citizens to be transformed, there must be business value, at least for the private sector. We've had it very clearly, you know, I kept on preaching that it's not about CSR. It's about doing good as good business. So as we transform our people, there will be opportunities that will come, and those opportunities will require us to be agile. I've heard the word sprint mentioned. I think it's coming from rugby. And I want to recommend to all of you, you know, that agility is the way to succeed. There is a book, actually, this is out of the script now, which is called Scrum, the act of doing double the work in half the time. Jeff Sunderland. He's not paying me anything, but I tell you, it connects very well with this agility, and if we are going to transform our people, and I can clearly see it, you know, even from Isuzu side, it might not be called agility, it might not be called Scrum, but we must be agile as we make our decisions. Compliance, we were told, is key, and for us to be able to achieve that, we don't need to be rigid. We need to be flexible, but at the same time as we become flexible, we must also be innovative, so that then we can be able to deal with that compliance issue. This whole discussion about governance and the broader concept of sustainability must start at the top. As you recruit your board members, as you have those board meetings, there must be a standing agenda, you know, about sustainability, and especially with the G, you know, for us to be able to succeed as an organization. Is also very true, and we are reminded that we know something is not right. But also at the same time, we know that something needs to be done. But it's very unfortunate that nobody is doing it. So again, friends, is an individual journey. We were told our organization have birth certificates. They are also individuals, they are people. So we must be able to bridge that gap between ourselves and our institutions if we are going to achieve this pillar of governance and for it to be able to take us to the next level. We must take responsibility. Awareness creation is key, and we must preach this gospel. Even more reason why now I should be crowned a bishop. You know, as we continue pushing this agenda of evangelization. So we must create that awareness, and we must have that voice. But as we have that voice, the conversation about self-regulation was very key, and we must embed it. You know, there are many stories that are not told about Isuzu. And when I was seated here, you know, Evelyn, yes, you have heard people speaking, but by you being a GIT, you know, that by itself is a governance issue, is a governance good fruits that are coming to you. But also more important, there's something called Super Metro. When we look back, all the Matatu madness that was there was structured from the madness to the order and the people that we should be able to pay courtesy to and, you know, commend for that is actually Isuzu. I don't know whether we know this. But this is about putting governance and making that governance work. But guess what? They didn't do it for the sake of it. They can tell you the numbers, how much they are selling, by just organizing that and making sure that there is proper governance. So friends, is really to say that there will be value. I mean, I heard Fred here, Dr. Fred talking about their employees and how they care for them and how happy they are. You know, I have had the opportunity to be at Isuzu a couple of times. Yes, of course, sometimes it's a bit of a challenge. Once you are seated and busy working, the fire alarm goes out, and guess what? Work stops. Everybody goes out, and you're asking what's going on. We should, I mean, few people should check what's going on, but they go out, all of them, and work stops. That's about the purpose, that's about the values that you're talking about. It's also about, you know, looking at it from a long-term perspective. And we must not look at it from a short-term perspective because it will not pay. And if you look at short-term, it will not make a difference. When they were thinking about this Matatu madness and how, you know, to get rid of that, if they thought about 1 year, 2 years, and I'm telling this about probably 10 years, maybe, I don't know, maybe about 10 years. But now is when they are reaping benefits out of it. You know, at the end of it all, it is about us doing the right thing. But as we do that right thing, Ambassador called us to action. And it was very simple. If we are going to do sustainability, and in this case, governance, then ethics is equals to reputation. And reputation is equals to good bottom line. But for us to achieve that, friends, we must think about ethical leadership. And I think that's the clarion call at the end of the day. We must lead ethically. And that way, we will be able to make a difference. We will be able to achieve sustainability. And sustainability here being that development that meets the needs of the present, but safeguarding the future. Remember, we live in a borrowed world. We have two options. We leave it as it is, or we make it better. Thank you very much, and may you have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those amazing comments and for echoing the call to action that we've been given. Let's give another round of rumble for our panelists. Have done an amazing job. So we have a slight situation that you could remain seated just a bit. We have a slight situation in terms of the time. So this is the last time I will stand here, and we'll just flow in this order so that we save on time. So we'll have Dr. Michael Musyoka. You'll come up and you will leaders in the panelist appreciation and also the moderator appreciation. And after that, I will call upon the associate dean will follow. I will not call upon just because of time, please forgive me, but we have an event coming right after us. So it's important we be able to summarize as quickly as possible. So the associate dean will come and will give the vote of thanks. And then after that, the panelists, you will meet outside. There's going to be a photo you're going to be taking together with the guests that are here. So you'll meet outside there at the atrium. And the rest of us will have the amazing opportunity to enjoy refreshments and networking again at the atrium. So that's a flow of events. Kindly, Dr. Musyoka, if you could, karibu sana.
Good afternoon once again. Is it afternoon yet? We are almost there, 13 minutes to afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, because it's like I'm going a bit fast. We have an event coming up by midday, and I was like, we are past midday. I would like to convey a note of appreciation. I would like to thank you all for attending this sustainability seminar. We are honored that you made time to be with us here in this auditorium, and even those who are with us virtually. I take that utmost opportunity to thank our hosts here at Strathmore School of Business for graciously availing the physical facility and the use of it during this seminar. We know you have a lot of activities which take place here, but by partnering with you and availing this facility, we have all gained. Through the able leadership of Dr. Sisa Mwangi, we appreciate the Strathmore Business School for your able partnership in putting this seminar together. Your expertise and contribution in developing ethical and transformational leaders through research, innovation, and dissemination of business and management knowledge will not go unnoticed. I would like to thank your team that has granted significant support to us through their time and efforts in the past few weeks. I thank the Isuzu East Africa, led by our Managing Director, Board Chair, Rita Kafashe, for your dedication towards driving sustainability conversations through these seminars. Over the years, we have brought together sectors, communities, and professionals to discuss the importance of sustainable development and business. In the like manner, I would like to single out Isuzu team and partners for their dedication and tireless effort to make sure every detail is executed well. I would like to thank our organizing team, composed of representatives from Isuzu East Africa and Strathmore Business School. Thank you all for making the third Isuzu East Africa Sustainability Seminar a success. Asanteni sana. So for now, I want to move forward and I want to bring the next session where we are going to do the gifting. And I would like to call the Associate Dean to be with me here as we gift our panelists. Thank you so very much for your time. We have really gained from your expertise. We are going to practice this. We are going to act like Dr. Mungai. We will be evangelists of governance. Kindly somebody. So we want to start gifting the panelists, and we will start with our MD and chair of the board. We have some token for you. Thank you for being a part of the panel. The next one will go to Professor Nura Mohammed. Thank you so very much for finding time to share your expertise for us. And the next one, before I call the next person to gift, will go to Dr. Fred Wasike. Thank you so very much for taking time. If you get your gift, you can go back to the audience. So I would like to call Eliud. Thank you very much for this invitation. Eliud, please come on the podium so that you can help us to gift who can help me to call them for me, please. Thank you, thank you. So call for me the next lot for us to give together.
All right, we have Paula Zisa to receive her appreciation gift from the organizers. Thank you.
Coming to share with us.
Thank you. Then we have Kennedy Karisa from Truckers Association of Kenya.
I would like to call Ambassador
And last-
Esther Wariga to come and help us give the remaining.
Last but not least, we have
Yes.
Lawrence David from Stanchat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador and the President PSG for gracing the occasion for us. So next,
We have the able moderators are led by Eric Latif, also becoming brand ambassadors.
we are gifting our moderators. Next time you are taking a safari, we have something to shade your head and then you become our ambassador for this. Thank you for gracing the occasion for us.
And finally, we have Dr. Mongai, now
John the Baptist.
becoming bishop. Thank you.
John the Baptist, as you go, you are going to go ahead. So as you go, kindly, you'll have something to share your head against the scorching sun.
Thank you. As
So,
an evangelist.
yes, as an evangelist, and you are going to read. So next. So we are now going to call the Associate Dean to come and give the vote of thanks. Dr. Kellen. Thank you so very much for your time, as I'm not going to stand here anymore.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, sitting there and just thinking about what has gone through in the seminar has been beautiful. And for me, the way I summarized it is that we must indeed embed sustainability and governance into our organizations. We must, and you know, Dr. Mungai, you started very well by saying that sustainability, we meet current needs without compromising the future. So what I've taken away is really the fact that much as we probably are working for profit and all those things, we must do these things ethically. It's not about money, it's about sustainability. Will we have the products we're selling today in the future, or we will have already exhausted them? We're doing this for the future generations. It's about impact. It's about our legacy. We must leave, indeed, a better world, like we were told. So thank you very much, Chief Guest, Eliud. Asante sana for gracing our occasion. Thank you for coming to Strathmore Business School for the very first time. We want to thank Isuzu for partnering with Strathmore Business School for this seminar. Thank you very much. I want to thank all the panelists and the moderators as well. Thank you very much. Very, very good insights that came through for us. Very, very insightful. So thank you very much. We want to thank all the participants in this seminar. Thank you for those great questions you asked. That was a fantastic example we got from, you know, the tracker one. It was really good, and just telling you how things go and how we all gained from these conversations. Very rich conversations. So thank you very much. And at this point, I would like to welcome you all to the photo session and the refreshments that we have. Asante sana. Let's give all ourselves a good round of applause for those very, very engaging conversations. So have a great afternoon, and God bless you. Thank you.